Imagine what might be different in your life if you thought of this place here as a place of extreme leadership importance. Well, I never thought that way when I was younger. When I was a kid, in fact, I hoped to be Pope or President. And even into my late 20s, I still was aimed at a leadership position. I'd gotten a law degree. I'd married an absolutely wonderful woman. So much for the Pope thing, that kind of flew out the window. And I was moving back to my native Michigan, perhaps to run one day for some important leadership position. And if at that time you could have shown me a picture of what my life would look like, I would have been ecstatic. This was exactly what it was to look like. Well, not exactly. One tiny problem. It was Jennifer, my wife, not me, who was elected Attorney General and then elected governor. And that made me what? Well, what used to be called a First Lady. And like so many First Ladies, I did some leadership things from that position. I supported volunteer efforts and I gave some speeches. But my overriding role was a role of support. You know what support is, right? It's that thing nobody notices, that being there for people and that making sure the trains run on time around here. Not all roses, really. So it was a bit of a problem for me because I had really hoped to change the world and to have some great leadership position. But it was clear who was the boss. It was my wife who was the boss. My wife, so busy that there were times I don't think she knew what was happening in her own household. It was that tough a job and she was that focused on it. So I had a problem of discouragement and lack of connection sometimes, of the way the world was treating me. But it wasn't the world that was my problem. My problem was here. It was in my own head. And the problem was that I bought into the garbage that said leadership positions are positions of mayor and principal and CEO and the big guys who make the world run. And I learned something very different in those years. It took me a while to learn it. And I learned it of all places as a mentor to a couple of young boys and watching my friends mentor kids. It hit me most distinctly at one moment when my little brother said to me, "Dan, could I call you Dad?" Wow. He just knocked the wind right out of me. What an incredible honor, a humbling honor to be called Dad. And what I learned from that, in that moment, was that people don't live in the world. That kid didn't, and my kids don't, and probably yours don't either. They live in their worlds. And so what's different when you begin to think about it in that way? That leadership is not a position. So that if you happen to be feeling a little discouraged or disgruntled or wondered, where's the significance of my life and what do I have to show for the work and does anybody see what's going on? I invite you to ask yourself two questions. Number one, whose world can I change today? Whose world can I change at this moment? And number two, what would be different if I live on purpose? Because when you live on purpose, you become a leader. And why not lead with your best self?